Hey everyone, it's Carissa at Sprinkled with Glitter. Thanks for joining me today. Today I am sharing 2 cards featuring the brand new pop-out backgrounds from Pinkfresh Studio. These background stamps are unique in that they have portions that pop out, and that makes multicolored stamping of the background really easy, and it also makes for a background stamp that can be used in a lot of different ways. So I'm going to show you a couple of ways that I use these stamps today. So these new background stamps from Pinkfresh Studio come in a variety of designs, and some of the designs have coordinating dies that are available, and you're going to see that with this Sunburst pop out here. They are red rubber, which makes for a great background stamp. If you've never stamped with red rubber, that is where stamps originated, and red rubber really takes ink very well. So you can see here, I can pull this background stamp off of the backer and I can use it as one solid background image, or I can pop out some of the pieces and use it partially or stamp them in different colors and really create my own custom design. Now, as I mentioned, some of them have coordinating dies, and this pop-out Sunburst is one of those backgrounds that's available that has a coordinating die, and I'm going to show you how I use that today. And then this is the pop-out diagonal stripe background. Now, if you've been following me for very long at all, you know that I am a sucker for a good diagonal stripe background. So when I saw this one, I knew I had to have it. Now, here's a look at the color palette that I'll be working with today. All of these are Pinkfresh Studio dye inks, and I have kind of this really sunny, springy, sherbety palette here. And I really felt like this was very, I don't know, Palm Springs maybe? I don't know. Go with me here on my vibe, okay? Now, when you're using the red cling rubber background stamps with your Misty stamping tool, which I'm going to be doing today, you want to pull out that black foam piece. That's going to allow you to use these thicker stamps with your Misty stamping tool. And today I am using the Misty stamping tool from Hero Arts. And I'm going to place my Neenah Solar White cardstock, this is the heavyweight cardstock, into the lower right hand corner of my Misty. And then I am going to mount my background stamp all in one piece onto the Misty lid. Now I'm going to pick this up, and then I'm going to start pulling out the pieces that I do not want to stamp with. Now, the really cool thing about this center circle piece is that it comes out so you can stamp it in the center of this design with a particular color, but you can also use it as an individual stamp to create a really cool background or something like that. So I am figuring out where I kind of want my pattern to start, because I'm not going to stamp this entire background. So I'm removing a couple of the pieces that I know I want to start with, and I'm removing everything below that. Now at this point, I have the border of this background stamp mounted on my Misty lid, and I am just being careful not to warp it too much as I take out these pieces. But you'll see that later on, I actually remove that border piece and just slide the stamps in without that. But I didn't do that until I got to the last pieces of this. So that border piece really does help you kind of get started in this pattern. Now I'm going to start out by putting these 2 pieces back into the background stamp, and I'm going to remove a couple of the pieces above that because I don't want to ink those pieces up. I want to keep this nice and clean. And then I'm going to take my inks from Pinkfresh Studio, and I am going to ink these up, and I'm going in with kind of a random pattern of color here. The colors that I'm using today are Passion Fruit, Coral Reef, Ballet Slipper, Apricot, Peach Fuzz, and Lemon Whip. And that creates kind of this really summery or springy, sherbety kind of palette. Now, once I get those pieces stamped, I'm going to put the piece in that goes directly above that, and I'm going to remove the piece that I already stamped. Now, you could probably do this in a variety of ways. This is just what made the most sense to me at this time. So once I have those pieces into place, I am going to ink them up once again using 2 different colors of ink and going in kind of a random order. And then I am going to stamp them onto my Neenah Solar White cardstock. Now I wanted to leave the entire process of stamping this background in the video, so I'm going to do that, but I'm going to go ahead and speed it up, and you're going to see that I'm just repeating the same steps. I'm adding the piece back in that's next to stamp and removing the piece above it so that I don't get ink on that portion of the stamp. And then I'm going to ink it up with my various colors. Now, I have to tell you, this seems like it would take a while. It really did not. But the part that took me the longest was actually figuring out what color I needed to put where, because I didn't have a solid idea in mind for where I was putting each color. I just knew I wanted, some of them here and some of them there, but I didn't necessarily want it to go, in a particular pattern. So I'm just trying to be a little bit random here. Now you'll notice that I took out the border of this stamp and I'm able to line these up, but I feel like this worked out well because I am towards the top of this stamp. I don't feel like I could have removed it any earlier in the process and still got away with, getting everything lined up. And then remember, as you're stamping the mirror. So I did get one portion where I didn't stamp the color that I thought I was stamping in the place that I thought I was stamping it. So just keep that in mind. Now, once I have this stamped, I am going to take the coordinating die and I'm going to line it up. I'm going to hold it in place with some Thermal Web purple tape. And then I'm going to run it through my Gemini Junior to die cut this background. And it's going to die cut around all of that stamping that I just did. Now, this worked out pretty well, but there was one piece that I just did not have lined up really. It was fine, but my eye was like, I need to redo that. And that's okay. All I did was take my die and die cut it again on just some plain Nina Solar White cardstock. And then I stamped with a stamp block onto that portion. So you're going to see me do that here. Now, when I lifted that original stamped and die cut piece from the cutting plate, it did kind of all stay together, and that worked to my advantage because I'm not going to have to try to piece this all back in order. I can just set that aside, and you're going to see how I kind of secure this in place with some delicate surface painter's tape and then flip it over so that it all stays in the same order, and I can add foam adhesive to the back of this. Now, this is one of those techniques that you could definitely use press and seal or something like that. I just couldn't find my press and seal today, and I didn't feel like looking for it, so I just used what I had on hand. So you're going to see I replaced a couple of those pieces there by just restamping them onto plain white die cut, and then I'm going to hold this in place all in order using that delicate surface painter's tape. Now, really quickly, I want to address something, and that is the fact that I am not wearing my wedding ring in this video, and I feel like I'm going to get some questions or comments on it. So I want to tell you what happened. Well, number one, COVID happened, and I've been sitting home and not doing much, and except for eating. So that was number one. And then also the day before I filmed this video, we went out for sushi for my husband's birthday, and I had a ton of soy sauce and did not drink nearly enough water. And I literally could not get my wedding ring on this morning. So I just thought, well, I'll just let him know there is not trouble in paradise. Everything is good in my marriage and my relationship, but the soy sauce needs to be diluted with a little bit of water. So lesson learned. Next time I'll be drinking a lot more water when I consume that much soy sauce. So anyway, that is the story of the missing wedding ring in today's video. Now, hopefully you were just paying attention to the fact that I flipped that entire panel over, added foam adhesive to these kind of sunburst rays, and then lined that up on my card base and adhered all those down at one time. And then I removed that outer frame portion, which, by the way, you could die cut that in a contrasting color and it would look absolutely beautiful on this as well. Now, for my focal image, I'm actually using the Sweet Lemonade stamp set from Pinkfresh Studio. And I'm inking up the solid portion of the stamp with ballet slippers and then just rolling the edge of the stamp into the coral reef ink. And that's going to give it a little bit of darkness around the edges. And I'm doing the same thing with the solid portion of this bottle just near the top. And I used the mint ink for that. So there's just a little blue hue around the top of my bottle. Now I'm going to take the coordinating dies for this stamp set and die cut everything, and then I can start arranging all of this on my card. I'm going to stamp my sentiment using the Gina K Obsidian Amalgam ink, and then I'm going to just start positioning my various things onto my card front using some foam adhesive. Yeah, just foam adhesive. I was going to say, and tape runner, but no, didn't use that. And then for the top of this bottle, to make it look like it has a little bit of sugar along the top, I took some liquid glue and added some Hero Arts icicle glitter just around the rim of that bottle. And then you can see I also finished the card off with a few clear droplets from the Essentials by Ellen Line and a thin gold frame around that open circle area. So now let's work on card number 2, and I am going to use the Diagonal Stripes pop-out background stamp from Pinkfresh Studio for this. And since I have 6 colors that I'm working with, I'm removing the 5 in between. So I left the corner in place, removed 5, left 1 in place, removed 5 more, left 1 in place, and so on. And that's just because in this particular card, I'm not using a random color pattern like I did the last time. The color palette is still the same, but I am going to stamp them kind of in order. So I'm going to go from Ballet slippers to coral reef and so on and so forth. Just keeping them all in the same pattern. So I'm inking up with my first ink here. And then once again, I am going to add the piece below it and remove the piece above it for each of these areas. Now I'm stamping 3 at a time or around that on each of these areas here. So I'm inking all 3 of the stamps up with the same color ink this time around. On the first one, I was stamping them with different colors of ink because I wanted a random color pattern. Now you're going to see I've worked my way through this, and for this last stripe, I used the passion fruit ink, and let me tell you, I wish I hadn't have done this. I contemplated bringing in the mint for the very last stripes on this pattern background, and I didn't do it, and I totally should have, because this was really, that red just felt really bold and out there. Now maybe it's cool for you. If I had it to do over again, I think I would use the mint. So this particular background stamp does not have a coordinating die, but I'm just going to take this and trim it down around the edges, and then I'm going to cut a 3/4 inch about strip of this. I'm not going to use the entire background. I'm going to use a strip of this like it's pattern paper. And so I'm taking some of that mint ink that I wish I would have used on my stripe pattern paper and I'm blending it onto my card base. This is a A2 size card base. It's cut to 4¼ by 11 inches and then scored at 5½ to create this top folding A2 size card. And once I had blended that mint ink on the background, I placed this into my mini Misty from Hero Arts. I prepped the surface using a powder tool, and then I stamped this really beautiful scripty sentiment using some Versamark ink. I'm going to add some Brutus Monroe Gilded embossing powder, and then I'm going to heat set that, and I am left with this big, bold, beautiful sentiment on my card front. Now I wanted to tie in the gold in another way, and so I'm just taking a piece of washi and placing this on my card front, and then I'm going to take this striped pattern paper that I created using that pop-out background stamp, and I'm going to adhere it onto my card base using some foam adhesive, and I'm just using my grid mat there to make sure I have everything lined up properly, and when I double check, then I'll go ahead and press that down into place. Now I happen to have this beautiful floral image from Pinkfresh Studio already heat embossed and die cut on some vellum. And I just stored it with the stamp set because I figured if I ever came back to it one day, I would already have it ready to go. So I've just trimmed a portion out of the center of this image and I'm adhering it onto the card front. Now I'm going to allow part of this to kind of hang off the top of the card, but I didn't want it to hang off of the left side of the card. So I placed it into my trimmer and I trimmed that left side down so that there was none of that floral image hanging over the left edge of the card. And I finished this card off using a few more of those clear droplets from the Essentials by Ellen line. And you can see, maybe you can see it, I placed a little strip of gold cardstock on there as well. And I snuck another piece of that washi towards the top. And that finishes off my second card for today, featuring the new pop-out background stamps from Pinkfresh Studio. Now, this video is actually a part of a blog hop happening over at my blog, so be sure you head on over there. I will have my blog linked in the YouTube description. Over at my blog, you'll find more still shots, more information, a complete list of supplies, as well as some information on a giveaway happening over there on my blog and some other people's blogs as well. So be sure to check that out. As always, I will have links to the featured products used in these projects in the description at YouTube. So if you're looking for something in particular, be sure you check there. As always, thanks for stopping by and hanging out with me today. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, be sure to give this video a thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notifications here on my YouTube channel so you won't miss any of my paper crafting and card making video tutorials. Once again, I'm so glad you're here. Thanks for watching, and until next time, I hope you have a fabulous day.